without representation, down with 280E.
No taxation without representation, down with 280E.
Hey everyone, welcome to our latest TDR Cannabis exclusive. I'm your host, Shad Dale. It's great to have you along. And today we've got an interesting podcast where we bring MariMed back into the studios to talk about an event that took place earlier this week in Boston that's getting a ton of attention from local media affiliates, where they emulated the famous Boston Tea Party from 250 years ago to bring attention to the worst words in this industry, the 280E tax code. So what was it? Let's bring in the CEO of MariMed, Jon Levine, and I am loving the attire that you have for this podcast. What's this all about, Jon?
Like our patriots of the 250 years before, fighting for taxation without representation and getting rid of 280E taxes, we stormed a ship and we threw overboard and blazed weed boxes into the Boston Harbor, just as they did with the Tea Party when they dumped the tea into the Boston Harbor in protest of unright taxes.
I love this. You ever thought about running for the office? This is great, brother.
Well, that'll be my next job. You know, I mean, Trump, I mean, they got to look at me.
All right. Well, let's find out what this event is and what the whole initiative is. So the format of this is simulated, as you said, around the Boston Tea Party. And for those that are unfamiliar with the Boston Tea Party, it was all about protesting taxation without representation. And it appears that history is repeating itself when it comes to the cannabis industry, because let's face it, this industry has been treated poorly and differently from others within this country. So, Jon, let's begin with what your event and protest is all about. So for our viewers, what is the Boston 280E THC Party?
It's exactly what it sounds like. We, just like our patriotic ancestors, as I said, went onto the ship chanting, no taxation without representation, do away with 280E. We're out here fighting for the rights of the cannabis industry to be taxed fairly like any other industry.
Yeah.
Having a Schedule 1 product, you're unable to sell that product in the U.S. without paying 280E taxes, which means that you are unable to take ordinary business expenses and deduct them from your bottom line and pay taxes on your net profit. Here in the cannabis industry, especially for startups, it's a brutal startup if you're not well capitalized and understand how 280E works. Basically, in 280E, as you're selling the medicine, you're paying taxes on the gross profit. So that works out to be a very large percentage of tax that you're paying versus if you have a startup company and they basically lose money on bottom line cash flow wise, they still have to pay taxes on the gross profit. That's a big hindrance to a company that is already undercapitalized. And that's the problem with the cannabis industry today.
Topic of conversation that we have all the time with you and others within this industry, and always asking questions as to how legislation is moving. So to walk me through what happened earlier this week, where did this event take place and what kind of feedback are you getting so far?
Well, we went to the Boston Harbor, pretty close to where the actual Tea Party was. It wasn't the same slip, but it was pretty close. So we were next to the New England Aquarium, and we went on to a schooner where we had boxes that were emblazed with the word weed. Tim Shaw, our COO, got up and made a speech.
Hear ye, ye faithful MariMed patriots. 250 years ago at this very same Boston Harbor, our colonial ancestors held the most famous tax protest in our great nation's history, the Boston Tea Party. Today we have stormed this schooner to protest an unfair tax. It's a tax that burdens our beloved cannabis industry, and it hurts the American consumers we serve. Because of Section 280E, cannabis businesses in our fine country pay much higher taxes than they should. And the citizens of this fair land pay higher prices for the safe and effective products we produce. At MariMed, we say no more! Tell your representatives in the federal government to repeal IRS Code 280E now. Well, 250 years ago, the most famous tax protest in history, in this land's history, took place in this very harbor called the Boston Tea Party. So we're paying homage to our ancestors and doing the same thing as we're burdened with a similar unfair tax in this wonderful cannabis industry called the 280E. We're bringing awareness to this tax code in hopes that we can get our people to repeal and go to the federal government, their representatives, and vote to repeal this burdenous tax code, right? Because the people who are really feeling the pain from this tax code is the consumer, right? They're paying much higher prices at the registers for their cannabis.
Decreeing the need to get rid of the 280E taxes and the unfair rights that they were bringing to us. And we dumped these boxes into the harbor.
Until they do, we say no taxation without
representation.
Down with 280E. No taxation without representation. Down with 280E. Join me in this protest.
Without representation.
Down with 280E.
And luckily, we have somebody down below that was able to scoop them right back up and pass them back up to us. We don't want to break any laws in Massachusetts or elsewhere. But this was in demonstration of getting rid of the unfair taxes that are out there today in the cannabis industry. This doesn't just affect us, but it also affects all of our patients and customers as they buy the product, because you have to increase the price to cover some of those costs.
Yeah, of course.
And those costs are very, very high, and it's not a reasonable way to do business. So, I mean, this affects everybody from the top down.
What's the jacket size you got on? I love it.
I won't say. It's a very large jacket, although it fits me perfectly.
I got to come out for a Patriots. I got to come out for a Patriots game this fall. We're tailgating in those outfits. Those are incredible. So, listen, we've had conversations recently about how when we were down at Benzinga, there was a few congressmen that were there that were saying we need to have more executives within companies advocating for this industry pertaining to 280E. And this is a prime example as to what some companies are doing right now. So I know what you probably hope to get out of this, which is getting rid of 280E, but what do you think an event like this will generate when it comes to bringing attention to, let's say, Washington?
I'm hoping that just brings an awareness of scheduling a medicine of the cannabis industry as a Schedule 1 or 2. By correcting the scheduling, they'll be getting rid of that 280E tax. You know, just having these banking rights that everybody keeps talking about, the banking bills that are out there, that's not a solution for 280E.
No.
The 280E is one of the other burdens that is on cannabis companies on an annualized basis. But it's really everybody in the cannabis industry. We've been very fortunate that we understand how to operate around the 280E, and we've done very well for ourselves as we grew this business. But we're one of the lucky people that made sure we had the capital to grow the business properly. And that's why we're successful with our operations today, you know, cash flow positive bottom line. But it's not easy because of the amount of taxes that we have to pay. People look at our cash flow and they're like, holy but Jesus, look at all the taxes you guys paid.
Yeah. So maybe walk us through, like, we talk about this a lot, but for those that are like new to the industry or like want to get a real good understanding, and I know you touched on it earlier, what exactly is the 280E tax, or 280E, Section 280E of the IRS tax code?
It basically says that if you're dealing with a Schedule 1 or 2 narcotic, that you are unable to take ordinary operating expenses, and they need to be added back in before you do your tax calculation. So basically, rent and employees and benefits for the employees or other operating expenses have to be added back in. The only thing that we can deduct are the gross profits that are creating the product itself.
Right.
So if I buy product from a third party to sell, I can deduct that product cost, but I can't take and deduct any of my health insurance or my employees' or salaries. And it's a real nuisance because the more money you make, the more taxes you have to pay.
Yeah, of course.
And unless you have some deductions that are legal, then you're going to have a hard time. So there is a understanding of how 280E works in the tax world, but I'm not going to have the time to really explain it to you. I'm not.
No, I get it.
a CPA, so it would be a little bit wrong for me to try to explain. the proper accounting. But I do know that if we had bottom line accounting, if we were a startup company, and that's why a lot of these social equity people are struggling to make it work, is because they need a lot of capitalization to make the profit just to be able to pay their expenses and pay back the money that they're borrowing from people that are investing in them or just plain borrowing.
Yeah.
So the fact is that we get triple negatives against us. We get taxed at a much higher rate because we're getting taxed on gross profit. Our borrowings that are outrageous amount of interest over prime, and we have to go through the scrutiny of every state having different tax laws.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate that Massachusetts, Illinois, and Maryland have all stepped up and realized that, they made cannabis legal in their states, and now they've corrected the error they made, and they've adjusted their tax code to allow for cannabis companies to have regular taxation. I'd be like to see the government do the same.
Yeah, of course.
That is.
So look, we were out in Boston last month, and we were at your Panacea dispensary. Great facility, by the way, and very lucrative on a major highway that basically is the last road stop before going down to Cape Cod, which I'm assuming is going to get a ton of traffic, especially this time of year. But how much of a change would it be for not only your company, but a dispensary like that, for example, if 280E were no longer in existence?
Well, bottom line, I mean, if it's not, I'm not going to say us, but most companies in the cannabis industry would see 2+ times savings on their taxes, because taxes right now, where most people can be anywhere from 2+ to a little bit more. But I'm just saying that round numbers, without speaking for everybody or for us, I'm just saying that there's a big savings when you're doubling the taxes that you normally would have to pay.
So first steps, what can the federal government do to solve the 280E? What would be in your view, like the first steps that they need to take?
Well, first of all, they need to realize that more than 50% of this country, the states of this country, are now get some type of legalization for cannabis, and the declassification downward to a 3 or 4 would settle the 280E issue, but still give us the ability to operate more like a real company.
Yeah. I know this is a tough question to answer, but when do you think the federal government will reschedule or deschedule cannabis?
I wish I had a crystal ball, because if I knew I was going to dress like this today,
Jon, right?
Man.
So let's talk about this event. Did you get a lot of attention? Like, was the mayor of Boston know about this event? Like, who are some of the people that attended?
There was a lot of our company that came, and we did have a lot of spectators. We had some press, both in cannabis and non-cannabis, that were very interested. And I think we drew a big crowd just walking around town dressed like I am today. So I think it was a very successful piece. But the one thing I want to thank is our employees. We have brought in close to 15 employees from other states and from our own home state here in Massachusetts to join us in this event. They were employees that were randomly picked, that were by their managers the top employees in each state by department or area that they work in. So we flew them in for this operation, and I'm very proud of them for joining us and participating in this, and they make this company what it is today.
So this took place on a boat, dressed the way you guys are, the whole team. This must have been incredible. And you guys are basically advocating for the industry. It must have been overall just a great day to be part of.
It's a great day to be part of anything where you can talk positive about making the corrections that are needed for the 280E to be adjusted in the cannabis industry.
Yeah. Something important for people to understand and learn. Does the SAFE banking bill, if passed, eliminate 280E?
Not under the present version that I've been seeing. It doesn't have anything descheduling it from below a 1 or a 2.
Right. So if we get this descheduled and rescheduled to Schedule 3 or 4, that's where we see big change, correct?
Yes, sir. We would see a great change for the cannabis industry, which would give us more ability out there. Forget the banking portion, but it gives us more ability to basically have the ability to run a company more like a regular company.
So did Ryan and Tim put the outfits on too? Were they?
They were the leaders. Tim, as I said, was the speaker. he got up and he declared that the 280E was an unfair tax, and right before we dumped the boxes into the harbor.
Yeah. Wonder if he got people misunderstood him for maybe being an offensive lineman for the Patriots with that outfit on. No.
I think they thought that we were the old New England Patriots walking into town. They were looking for Steve Grogan.
Yeah, there's a name I haven't heard in a while, but that's for sure. Ultimately, though, like this has been a big day. Do you think this ultimately is going to, like you said, you want this to be brought to attention to the federal government to start to bring more advocating and like attention towards the current state of the industry and how it has been misrepresented, poorly represented within the industry? But if you're an investor or a viewer looking to get into this space, how much progress have we made towards this particular topic? Like, have we come a long ways from, say, we were in comparison to, say, a year or 2 years ago pertaining to this?
Unfortunately, no. 280E has not changed much at all. Banking has changed more than the 280E. Banking has become a little bit easier. But again, people come in not understanding, even if you know how to run a business, you have to have a full understanding of how 280E works so that you make sure that you run your operations properly so that you're not overpaying in taxes and putting yourself out of business before you even get started.
Yeah.
We've been very diligent in making sure that we look at our full operations and make sure that we grow and we process and that we sell all for the best 280E ability so that we're not overpaying taxes more than we already are.
Yeah.
I do feel that we're hoping that people will learn from this protest to contact their state reps and push them for the deschedulation of the scheduling of 1 and 2 and get us into the right scheduling. This is not a narcotic that's going to hurt anybody anymore. People are realizing it. It's time for a change.
Absolutely. I'm hearing that from everyone. Like, it's even some of the conversations that you and I had a couple months ago, and we've touched on this going back to the conference in Miami and Benzenga, where some of the dispensary owners that you've met with in the past weren't even aware of a 280E tax code before opening up a dispensary, which blew my mind away.
Yeah, unfortunately, I know a lot of people that got into this industry and then they got their first tax bill and they were like, what? How do I owe more than I made?
And that breaks a company like month to month, right?
Well, it puts people behind because they are unable to pay their tax bill. And then when you have to deal with the IRS and you have to make up all those payments, you're never able to catch up unless you have a really good couple of years and you figure out how to work around that code so that you're getting the fullest deductions. And it means controlling your staff and not having too much staff.
Yeah.
So that you're not overpaying. But yeah, I remember when I first got into this industry back in 2008 and finding out how hard it was to survive. I mean, we started in California, Bob Fireman and I, and when we were in California, the tax rate that you were charging a customer was 42%. The tax rate for the company was well over 12, and then you still had to pay the IRS.
Yeah.
So you couldn't collect the 12 from the customer because they were already paying 42% tax. You were paying for the medicine, and then you had to pay for the people to work there, but you couldn't deduct it. So it made it very difficult, but a very good education at the beginning for us to learn truly about how 280E works.
Yeah, I think that gives a true understanding of what you just outlined as to how much of a challenge it is for companies that a lot of people, I think, are unaware of. Yes, they understand a little bit about the actual tax code, but not really understanding the specific details of an everyday operations of the things that you can't do. I have to ask, whose idea was this to put this event together? It's incredible.
Howard Schachter, our
of course,
communication director, is very talented at coming up with great ideas like this.
Yeah.
And we do thank Howard for a great opportunity to give a good message in the 250th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party.
Yeah. How do you think Bob would look in an outfit like this today?
Oh, he'd look fabulous.
Good stuff. I know we've talked about in the past about, making sure that you have the right team in place with innovation. As we touched on last month, one of the top 10 biggest market cap companies in the US now pertaining to US cannabis, a company that's on the rise, grabbing a lot of attention. Based on an event like this, and I know you're trying to think of out-of-box, innovative things, what should people think of when you're thinking about MariMed as a company when it comes to stuff like this that you continue to do?
MariMed is a successful company. We're very diligent about making sure that our balance sheet is very well maintained. We don't try to do things beyond our means. We have been staying very disciplined on how fast we grow. We make sure that we're not putting ourselves into a situation where we have tax issues with 280E. That's what's made us a very strong company in this industry.
Yeah.
As our balance sheet and income have been showing you for the last few years, that we're positive cash flow, positive earnings, positive EBITDA. Not many companies can say that. And to say that we're in the top 10 of capitalization in this market shows that we're getting a little bit more respect.
Yeah.
I just need to get people to realize that our stock price is undervalued, and that doing things like this will get people to understand this is a company to watch. They understand what causes companies not to succeed,
Yeah.
but what they're doing to fight for justice for the people that really want cannabis to be fully legal and accessible to all.
Yeah.
And that's really where it should be today. This is not any worse than alcohol. I think it's actually better than alcohol, and there's some better advantages to it.
Yeah, you make a very good point there. And that's a lot of conversations I've had too. And in addition to all that, do something differently, for God's sakes. I feel like we're in cannabis. Let's have some fun a little bit. But I got to see you. Step back a little bit. Let me see that jacket. That is beautiful. Where did you guys get those?
I have no idea how to get them. They have to go back to the
Go back
to the company because they're apparently doing a movie tomorrow.
Oh, really?
So I hope they have time to clean them because it's hot out here.
I would think. What's the temperature out there this week?
It's going to be 85, 90 today.
Wow. So nice and toasty. That's for sure. Next time, let's have another one of these events in the fall and I'll come out. I'd love to dress up. That would be great.
Shad, we were looking forward to you join us on the boat.
I know.
I was disappointed when you weren't able to make it, so I'll save you a hat for next year.
Listen, tell the team I say hi. This is a great idea. I know we've got some B-roll footage that's coming too. That'll be a part of this podcast. But, kudos to you and your team for drawing some attention towards this because, like I said, start doing things that are out of box and it'll generate obviously some attention for the industry. And most importantly, getting this through to Washington so we can continue to push the ball forward and change the narrative. And I think, it's not a matter of if, but when this will all happen, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a matter of if.
Yeah. Okay, man. Have a great week. And again, congrats on a fabulous event you guys took place this week in Boston.
Thanks, Chad. I really appreciate you having me on again today.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Hey, everyone. So how are you surviving these tough market conditions right now? Are there any emerging industries that you want us to cover? Any guests that you want us to interview? Then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to source out. As usual, share this video with your network, smash that like and notification bell, and as usual, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.